we'll officially get it going. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's meetup. I'm Chrissy Key Rollins, and I believe most of you probably know Joy, who got this whole meetup started forever ago.
Mm-hmm. That's the Wake for Consciousness. Seventh month. Yeah.
It's the first time doing one online, so welcome to this online format, and I'm glad to see that a couple more people could join. Maybe meeting virtually will be helpful, and I know that it's on Joy's heart to have this topic that we're starting the conversation tonight to be an ongoing series. So if it's of interest for sure, and this format works good, maybe we can keep it on the virtual format, and then I can join in even if I'm not here in Select because I'm just right now.
Yeah. And I was actually because I've been asked like what the Silva group is about, because I guess the title of it is kind of vague. Silva, Wake, Shine, and Rise. And but actually what it's about is the hero's journey, because that's what everything is about. Each one of us is on our own hero's journey to receive our boon and bring it back to the world, to give it. And so I don't know that I'm going to change the name of the group, but for a while we're definitely going to be focusing on the hero's journey. And we're starting today. We're going to do a really quick overview and of what the hero's journey is. There's stages, and I'll go over those. And then we're going to focus on the common beginning place for all of us, which is our birth, and the energies that are at play when we come into this lifetime and that affect us for our entire lifetime. And when we're aware of them, we can actually harness those energies for the good and to make our hero's journey more of an adventure than a trip through hell or anyway, it gives a whole lot more meaning. And I know people are searching for meaning in this world. I know there was a point in my life where I couldn't find any meaning in life, and I'm lucky, very lucky, that I survived that period in time. So the hero's journey, I really recommend that you, if you're interested in this, in your own hero's journey, Google and take some deep dives down some rabbit holes. The hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, also Carl Jung and his work with archetypal energy, because that's what we're dealing with here. The hero's journey is, in all of the ancient mythologies about heroes, Campbell recognized that there was a common theme, a common pattern that all of the heroes went through in their quests for, the Holy Grail, basically. And he called it, this pattern, the monomyth. And what he proposed is that we each go through, our life is our hero's journey. And what it does is we start out in the ordinary 3D world, and we get a call to adventure. That is the beginning of your journey. And we're going to go into the call for adventure, the call to adventure next time, and then each subsequent time we'll investigate another stage of the hero's journey. But I want to go through the different stages and get you to start thinking about where you are on your journey. And also, I think that, like our lifetime is like one long hero's journey, but we have like other like tiny hero's journeys all throughout our lifetime, dealing with different aspects of our life. But right now, think about, as I go through these, and tell you just a tiny little overview of what each stage is. I can find my notes. I want you to think about where you are in your overall lifetime hero's journey. When you think you have something in order, and it's not. Okay.
All in divine order, right?
Yes. And perfect timing. Okay, so I'm going to show you this chart right there. So you have here from the top half up, that is the ordinary world. And then from the bottom half is the supernatural world. And you start in the ordinary world, just ordinary life. And you get a call to adventure. And it can come in any number of forms. It can come in the form of a crisis. It can come in the form of mental illness. It can come in the form of physical illness. It can be you're just
depression.
Depression, yes. It could be you're just bored with life. You're like, there's something more. There's got to be something more to life than this. Ordinary, literally ordinary just stuff. And you have a choice at that time to either answer the call and begin your adventure, or you can refuse the call, which is, it can be really dangerous. I am one who refused my call and ended up basically spending a couple of decades of my life in that, in the hellish area, and of course I wasn't conscious of not answering the call. I didn't know anything about any of this. I just didn't think I was capable or could do anything different than what I was doing. And so I did, I'm going to let you read the comments. So I fell into mental illness for quite a long time. And it wasn't until 13 years ago that I awoke and began my conscious hero's journey. And when did you answer your call to adventure?
I'll certainly speak to that, but I'll read what Leonard chatted in here. If anybody's where they can't see the chat, Leonard had chatted in. Has anyone ever felt like there's just something you're missing? I wouldn't say bored with life, just a feeling of being on the wrong path. Not a bad path, just not what you could be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I can certainly relate to that, and I'm sure if anybody, we just muted out the lines, but if you're in a place that you want to share and you want to unmute yourself and speak towards this, or if you just want to answer in the chat, Joy and I are happy to field the questions, and we can utilize the chat that way. So whatever works best for y'all. But yeah, I would say that mine's a little bit more aligned with Leonard's in that it was more of a putting together the pieces of, wait a second, what I'm doing is okay, but this doesn't really add up to what I see other people doing in their life, what I'm starting to believe is possible about my life. And if I believe that it's possible, how do I get to that? So I feel like very often we're on our path, the moments that we're born, quite frankly, but consciously choose it. When I started to consciously make choices in a direction that says, if I believe in this divine unfolding, I believe that there's this perfection behind it, I believe there's this purpose behind it, and I'm part of it, then I must be part of the perfection. I must have a purpose as well. Wasn't quite sure what the purpose was, or even how to get to finding that purpose, but just that realization and starting to treat myself as if there is more to the story and start to look at my life as if more will be revealed. It just started. I had no idea where that inquiry would lead me at all. I sat with it for like 3 days, and then all of a sudden these floodgates opened and everything started to fall into place, and it all just started to happen really, really quickly. But it's interesting because that all happened years before I really consciously connected to my personal hero's journey.
Okay, so what I'm interested in, if you guys don't mind.
That time in 2009 where I was like, wait a minute, if it's all perfect and I'm here, maybe I have a purpose too. And maybe if I just do the things that I do know to do, I do know to move my body in a certain way, I do know to feed myself in a certain way, I do know that I thrive better when I do that, maybe my purpose will be shown to me. Maybe it'll all be figured out. I don't know, but this is what I do know. Let me apply what I do know. I don't know, so let me apply what I do know. And applying what I did know combined with that self-inquiry definitely catapulted events. But it was years later when I was feeling the crunch in my life, already living my purpose, living my passion, which is also something that people don't often talk about. Like, what do you do when you're starting to feel burnout following your passion? Because I'm into my 13th year of being an entrepreneur, and feeling that burnout feeling when following your path is kind of a whole another kind of scary than feeling that burnout feeling whenever you realize that you're not on your path. I was feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling like I couldn't keep up. And quite frankly, I was turning to all the previous paths that I had turned to for relief. I needed help. I needed somebody to save me. And I looked down this one path, and the answer was no. Okay, so then I looked down this other path, and the answer was no. And then I looked down this other path, and the answer was no. And I looked down this other path, and I was like, I'm not even going down that path. So I'll go ahead and tell you that answer is no. And when I realized, I was like, but what am I supposed to do when all the avenues of help are saying no? Oh, maybe I'm the hero of this journey. Maybe that is a sign that I can save myself. And I turned back on what I was creating, what I was doing in my life, that overwhelm that I was looking to be saved from. And I just realized, wait a second, nah, I'm the main character of this story. Maybe I'm the hero. Maybe it's not for someone else to save me. Maybe it's for me to save myself. Again, don't know what that looks like, but I do know that if all the answers are no and I'm still standing, maybe I'm the yes in the equation. And I started with that same surrender that I can see it to be now, and that same self-inquiry and that same peace, being at peace with the unknown and just being with that inquiry and walking for consciously on faith, which is a little bit different than the subconscious faith walk that we do in every single second and every single moment and every single movement that we make in our lives.
And Justice Campbell points out that if there's already a path, it's not yours. You know, the hero makes his own or her own path. Campbell tells a story about the Knights of the Round Table, and when they started their quest for the Holy Grail, they all went to a clearing in the forest, and each one picked out what to them was the darkest entryway into the forest, and each one went their own path, because it would not have been honorable to go, first of all, to a path that was like less scary, and also a path that was already created.
Leonard says yes, yeah. So Leonard can definitely relate to that. With
can you guys hear me?
Like being on a path, I'm like, okay, this is all right. This is kind of what they're talking about, but I know that there's something.
And also in yoga, it's said that the true yogi doesn't, you know, they are their own guru. The true, you know, like the one that is, that's their path, you know. But it's, I tell you, it's scary. It's scary not having anybody, you know, to tell you, oh yeah, you're on the right path, you know. And also, if you have, like me, if you've been brought up in a religious tradition, it's really, for me, it was really, really difficult to first let go of everything I'd learned, basically, and to make my own way, because there was that, I was raised Southern Baptist, and there was that, you know, with that hellfire and damnation God. And I had to, I didn't just let go of all that. I divorced all of that, and basically, you know, threw out the baby Jesus with the church bathwater and God all together. But that was I was still in hell then. But it really actually helped me, because when I did have my awakening, which all glory to God, literally, because it was the hand of God that touched me, I was able to, as I began walking my own authentic personal path, I was able to develop my own personal relationship with this thing that had awoken me. I didn't even know what it was. I identified it as love. But it is scary, especially when you've been told all your life that if you don't do things a certain way, you are going to burn in hell for the rest of your life. But you don't. You don't. And really, the hero's path is your journey to your authentic self, your true identity, which is a child of God with all of the spiritual DNA and powers and abilities of God. And that is what I believe Jesus came to tell us. he called us his brothers and sisters, and that means he didn't say you're my half brother or my half sister. He knew that all we really needed to do was to find our true, authentic selves, which, our identity is the very same that he was. And let me run through the steps real quick.
Well, can I say a couple of things first? That you're sparking for sure, because I love so much of what you're sharing. And I totally agree with you. Whenever there's not a path that you can clearly see, it is daunting and it is overwhelming. It can be daunting enough whenever you're looking down all those paths that are already carved, and that can be part of the trip up, because we're comparing what our journey should be like compared to what we see other people doing. Now, that can be a good clue that there's more out there for us, but at the same time, we can get kind of confused and try on some paths that aren't really true to us, or some aspects of navigating those paths that aren't really true to us. And the whole journey really is about getting back to your true self so that you can live into this calling. And I think that that reconciliation of you and your knowingness has got to be the whole thing that flips it over into being a hero aspect of yourself, and then real life begins, and then you really start to play. But what you said is so true. When you can't see that way, it can be really scary and it can be really daunting. But for me, knowing that this is part of the plan, that this is part of the blueprint, that we can look at not just the stories that we've been told throughout history and in modern day society through the books that we read and the movies that we watch and the stories that we're told. It's not just this story. It is actually a model of everybody's story. So when you're feeling struggle and you're feeling like you don't fit in, or something's not quite right, or there's something more, or something's just not a good fit, maybe we don't know exactly what that path is, but knowing like, oh, this is just part of the human experience. This is just part of the human journey. This is just part of what happens along the way, that for some reason up until now, we haven't been really forthcoming in having conversations about, which is why I'm so committed through my work and through my personal life to have these conversations so that we can better understand the human experience, so it can make more sense to us, so we can just relax into it a little bit. And when I could see like, this is not the end, but this is just the beginning of what I'm really came here for. While there wasn't a clear path, I was more willing to take it. I was more willing to start to chart my own way. And it's interesting because I didn't even know that all this was about the hero's journey, as far as like all these different aspects of it, doing the research the way that you looked at it. But I love how it all just really validates and backs up the work that I'm doing in the world.
Well,
and how that's where the magic comes through, being you.
Yeah, the thing about the hero's journey is it is the monomyth. It is everybody, whether they're conscious of it or not, we're going through these steps. And I want you to, as I read the steps, think about where you are in your journey. And there's something else that you said that. Anyway, you done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just taking some notes.
Okay.
Yeah. Pick the path that's darkest and uncharted, for it to really be that noble honor, like the part of it that feels right to you to enter. Where does it feel right to you to enter? That unknown forest, that metaphorical forest.
And really, the journey, it plays out in the world around you, but it begins inside. It's all inside, and then it's, like happens out there, but your journey is going within. And all of these stages happen within. And again, we start in the ordinary world, and you could think about think about Star Wars. That's a wonderful hero's journey tale, and how Luke is in this ordinary world, and just out of the blue, it seems he gets this calling, and he answers the calling. I don't think he does it right away, but and what the calling does, it takes you to out of the ordinary world into the supernatural or the special world, which again is all inside. And so we go from the ordinary world, we have the call to adventure, and this is not what I was looking at. I have some really nice little concise Yeah, this is messed up. You talk for a minute. Now let me
Well,
get this
I
figured
had
out.
thought the same questions whenever we were speaking before about the hero's journey. Is it an internal experience or is it an external experience? And of course, it brings me back to like the spot where I find the magic to happen is where it's the balance between the two, where you can learn how to navigate that internal journey in a way that allows you to more boldly navigate this external world, and being able to find a partnership between your internal and your external self, your internal world and your external world, to be able to continually take those steps forward. For me, it's kind of like the secret sauce of life, and where I find the most opportunities and richness and unfoldings and those things that we're all been told is out there, and wondering why they don't happen more often. That's usually where I find them at the meeting between those two worlds, that internal journey and that external journey.
Yeah. Okay, so here are the stages.
I'm going to step real quick.
Okay. We have a call to adventure. And again, we can either accept the call or we can refuse the call. At least temporarily, we can refuse the call. But that it can be very, very dangerous. As I said, some people that refuse the call, they just don't make it. And some that refuse the call get a second chance, like I did, which actually my refusal of the call came around my first Saturn return, and it seems to be a common theme that your Saturn return, which happens when you're around, starts around when you're 28, goes 29, 30, is when a lot, like most people, do receive this call to adventure, because it's really setting your life's purpose for the next 30 years until your second Saturn return. And if you miss your first Saturn return, which is calling you to really step into becoming yourself, your real, true, authentic self, and fulfilling your purpose here. If you miss it the first time around, you're going to really, like the refusal to the call to adventure, you're not going to be in a good place. And it'll probably take until your second Saturn return to really get things straightened out in your life. And it was so true with mine. I refused the first call and spent the next 25 years really traveling through some really, really dark spaces, and it wasn't until my second Saturn return that I really was able to do this on a conscious basis. All right, so you get your call to adventure, and you either refuse or you go. When you do go, the next stage is you meet a mentor. And the mentor helps you to gain confidence, insight, gives you advice, training, or magical gifts to overcome the initial fears and face the threshold of
How do
the
you
adventure.
find a mentor?
So that is one of the first major stages in the journey. And this is still in the ordinary world, by the way. But then you cross the threshold into the special or supernatural world. And this signifies that the hero has finally committed to the journey. The hero is prepared to cross the gateway that separates the ordinary world from the special world. Again, the ordinary world is this out here. The special world is inside of us. The crossing may require more than accepting one's fears, a map, or a swift kick in the rear from the mentor. The hero must confront an event that forces him to commit to entering the special world from which there is no turning back.
I like it.
Yeah. And then the next stage, and these are when you start looking into this, and again, please Google and go down your rabbit holes, because it's absolutely fascinating when you start applying this to your life, because it applies to everybody's life. So the next stage is deals with tests, allies, and enemies. Having crossed the threshold, the hero faces tests, encounters allies, confronts enemies, and learns the rules of the special world. This stage is important for the hero, whether entering the imaginary world of a future society or the emotional realm of romantic love. The test stage is our first look at the special world and how it conditions and inhabitants contrast with the hero's ordinary world. So, and then the next one is the approach to the inmost cave. And this is the central ordeal. This is really where you slay your dragon, so to speak. Or if you don't like the term slaying, you tame your dragon. But we all have, shadow material that we really have to deal with in order to fully receive our boon, which is like the whole point of the hero's journey, is they are going to receive their boon, which is something of great benefit, not only to themselves, but to the entire world. And they're supposed to bring it back to the ordinary world. In, the Knights of the Round Table, they were searching for the Holy Grail. And so in order to get to that Holy Grail, you have to deal with your dragons. And some lists, these are broken down into as many as 30 different stages. I'm trying to condense them into a shorter list. But after you go into the innermost cave, that is your belly of the whale, so to speak. It's the central life or death crisis during which you face your greatest fears, you confront your most difficult challenges, and you experience death. The death of the ego, the death of your false beliefs, whatever you have to let go of, it's in this innermost cave with these dragons that you're dealing with. And the hero's journey is really, it's self-psychotherapy. And it does require a huge commitment because you can't really begin this journey and start getting into the really challenging and tough and messy stuff, and then just like I can't do this. It's hard.
Yeah, there's no half-in.
Yeah, no.
There's no one-toe.
And that's why it's called the hero's journey.
Because if you're still one-toeing it, you haven't really started yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this crossing the threshold, you haven't crossed the threshold yet if you're just one toe in. Because at least for me, from my experience, which of course I can't speak for anybody else but for myself, once I crossed that threshold, once I was like, wait a second, I had firsthand experience of there being more than what meets the eye. It looked like nothing was happening, but I saw something happening, and I knew it was happening, and I saw how it worked, and now I get what my mentors had said. I get that map that they've given me. I followed it. I saw it in action. I am now and forever a believer, and I will never turn back because I can't turn back. You can't, that mind expanded. You can't squeeze it back together again. There's no undoing it. And for me, there was just a new world opened up at that point. And there was no option in going back for me. I don't know if people can dip back out of that, but I think if I were to dip back out of that, I would forever know that I wasn't living the truth of life.
Yeah, you would be miserable.
Yeah,
absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
And
how about y'all? I see that Leonard is totally staying in tune and making jokes too. So I appreciate it.
And then after this ordeal, this like death, the hero receives the reward, the boon, the holy grail, which, guess what? It's himself or herself, their true, authentic, child of God self. Their unique, beautiful, powerful, meaningful, special, amazing self. And that is what they bring back to the world. But the only problem is they face challenges in bringing that to the world. That's where Chrissy comes in so powerfully with helping people to
bring that integration back.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's one thing, as we've all learned, it's one thing to go to the mountaintop to learn it and to be at peace on that mountaintop. It's another thing to come back down and bring that same peace into Thanksgiving dinner or into your relationship or back into your household, your family dynamics. We slingshot back. And the part of my gift in this world is helping with that integration process. How do you continue the integration process? And how do you do it in a way that doesn't stifle your journey, especially when you're the only one in your world or one of the only people in your world talking, living, breathing, committed to this journey. I was partnered with someone that wasn't consciously on the path with me. And I only saw examples of people going down that path with a partner who wasn't on the same journey with them outgrowing, going their separate ways, splitting up. And I've found so far anyway how to navigate that journey moving forward with a partner who's not consciously on the path.
Me too.
And yeah, in very different ways.
Yeah.
In very different ways. How to navigate that journey forward in a way that they don't hold you back, but instead actually accelerate your journey, and how to allow this relationship to unlock your next level of growth in a way that unlocks theirs, so that they can actually catch up with you without even having to consciously do the work that we think they have to put in, and help you to see how they've always been doing the work, because you're never not doing the work. It's just your level of conscious awareness. And when we can hold ourselves to a point, or evolve ourselves to a point of receiving that equal return from our partner, it's really quite powerful what can happen. And that was absolutely like picking the darkest part of the forest and venturing in where there was no path, because I literally saw no example happen still to this day. I don't have an example at all. I have suggestions of ideas to implement, and I've actually implemented them, and I have found results with them. But I haven't had anybody who's like, this is what I did in my relationship, and this is what happened. It was more like, well, have I applied everything in my toolbox? And when I bring out something new, my partner has met me every single time, but I've had to integrate it in a way that wasn't shown to me before.
And that's the key, is you integrate it first.
Yep.
And then, it's like it begins inside, and then it spreads to the outside. I'm the same. My husband is not on a conscious spiritual path. He actually has. Well, he's getting more interested in it now, because he's seeing these miraculous things happen around me, and but I had to, my pact with myself was that I did not need for him to participate. I didn't need for him to approve. I just needed to do my thing and make sure that he knew that I was doing it not just for me, that I was doing it for us. And I always spoke like that. It's like we and us and everything.
And then for me, I had to stop acting as if, or living as if, my husband wasn't a conscious spiritual being just because he wasn't consciously seeking the path. And when I started looking at him as not someone who wasn't woke, but someone who actually speaks of spirituality in terms of common sense, and started to look for the divinity within him instead of looking for him to display it first, it actually evolved my character and unlocked a new level of communication between the both of us. And I could see how there's not examples of this out there, and why others may have not missed the opportunity, or just may not have had that opportunity open up as a choice.
Yeah, but I also think that it goes with that there is no path but your own thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and the Joseph Campbell says, he's the one that says, follow your bliss, and doors will open where there were no doors before. When you are committed to this, those doors open, and they open in not only in your life, but they open in the lives of the people, really particularly that you live with. But the ones that you interact with, too. I mean, look at us, you and me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I have clients who say, I have nobody else to talk to about this because I
Mhm.
don't know anybody else who's doing this.
Mhm.
And I say, I feel ya, because I got nobody else to talk to about it either, because I don't know anybody else who's doing this either. But every time that I've tried it, it works. So I don't know if that's just for me or not, but it's worth the exploration. And she'll take it back and she tries it and she comes back with the same result.
Mhm.
And that's what I think is so beautiful about this, that much like if we can just find that pattern behind it, which is what my gifts and calling and my whole life's work's been all about, is finding that underlying pattern, that code that lies beneath the surface,
And that's what
that unlocks
yeah.
how to, like, what to do with ourselves.
Mhm.
That's the way I look at it, because I've moved out of this belief that we have to do a series of events in order to get something on the other side, and now look at it as just this inevitable unfolding. So now all these protocols and processes, I just look at it as what to do with yourself while you're waiting, because it's going to come. So what do you do while you wait? While you wait, you repeat these processes. While you wait, you further integrate. While you wait, you learn how to love more deeply, more expansively, not only yourself, but through loving yourself, those around you, and through loving those around you, you're loving yourself more deeply as well. So knowing that, oh, this is just a repeatable process. This is just an ongoing integration. This is just an ongoing unfoldment, ongoing evolution. For somebody like me who's always trying to get it right and see that tangible result as proof and evidence on the other side, it allows me to relax into it and not have to get everything so right and so perfect, but just to experiment and play. And the more that I do that, I'm like, oh, well, what if that's really how it's supposed to be all the time? Because the only time that I'm not enjoying myself is whenever I'm not experimenting and playing and just letting it be this fun unfolding.
Yeah. And the pattern, like we all have our own individual paths, but there is a pattern to the path, and it can help us. And these, there's, these archetypal energies that come in, like the mentor and the enemy and all these, they are common patterns on the hero's journey, and they're going to be different for everybody, but they're common themes. And when we're conscious of them, we can make them work for us instead of, being hindered by them. And I wanted to, speaking of archetypal energies, I wanted to get back to the common starting point, our births, and talk about that. We've got it's about 10 till 8.
Okay.
So y'all stick around with us as long as you want to. I know I posted it was only supposed to be an hour, but I did want to get into this because I think so many people really don't utilize the circumstances of their birth. They don't even understand them or even know them because they haven't thought that they're important to know. But of course, your time and your place of birth is extremely important astrologically. And Chrissy's really, really good with astrology, and I'll let her talk about that in a minute, but I want to go over a few more things that I want you to think about that you might not have thought about. Your name. Whatever your given name on your birth certificate is the name that you need to dive into and explore the energies of. Whether your parents, were really conscious people and they wanted to give you a name that, like in ancient biblical times, they thought that if they gave you a certain name, that you would like be that. Like, there was names for lion and protector and different names that meant something, and they would give the child these names, and then the child would be expected to grow into that name. And also, names back then were representative of the entire essence of a person, not just what they were called. And so think about your name and do some deep diving on Google with that too. Like, for example, with my given name, on my birth certificate, it was Diana Joy Haney. And when my parents brought me home from the hospital, they were going to call me Diana, but my older sister could not pronounce it, but she could say Joy, so that is how I came to be known as Joy. And this Diana part of me was kind of just shoved off somewhere, into the ethers, and it never really was a part of me. But what I have discovered is that it was a very important part of me that I needed to own. It was like Diana is the moon goddess, the inner reflective, like the dark moon, and then Joy is like bright, sunshiny, these two total opposites. But I have this whole half of me that I never tapped into, and thus I had this imbalance. No wonder I went crazy. And so think about your name, and whether your parents knew what they were doing when they picked it or not. That is the name you were supposed to have, and it means something. And I know a lot of people change their names, but I really highly encourage them to dissect, their given names, and use the energy that is there. I'm fascinated with my Diana aspect of myself now. And also, think about when you were born. What was going on in, like, the country that you were born, in the world, in the area of the country that you were born, what was going on politically, what was going on in society, what kind of energies were in the collective at the time of your birth, and especially in the first formative years of your life. For example, me, I was born about 14 or 15 years after the first nuclear bomb was exploded. So that was really fresh energy in the consciousness of the world, that, to know that one individual being could press a button and destroy humanity. Basically, we lived with that fear. I know y'all that came up in the 50s and 60s when they still had, atomic bomb drills. And also think about, I was born in 1959, so the civil rights movement, the women's lib was in the 60s, the civil rights movement, the race for space, which we are celebrating like tomorrow, I think, is the 50th anniversary. Think about the energies that were going on in the collective. because they influence you. These are archetypal energies that influence your personality, your development, your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings, everything. And Chrissy, I want you to talk about them. Astrology.
Yes, I love the reflection back on the time that you're born from the perspective of what was happening locally and societally and politically, globally, because I do believe that the energy, the thought patterns, the beliefs, the conversations, the experiences that a mother goes through while a child's in utero, um, and way before, as all this is built up for so much time before the here and now. But I do feel like all of that is really a powerful influence, part of the DNA structure, part of the molecular structure, part of the imprinting, the kind of the blueprint that you come into life with. And I personally have explored it from the astrological level. While that is not my area of absolute expertise, it is an area of fascination and ongoing curiosity that I have
It's also
with.
a tool. It really helps you.
Yeah, without a doubt. I've been interested in astrology for as long as I've known that it exists, and just with at the peak of my interest, we didn't have this plethora of information at our fingertips that we now have with the internet. That was more like high school, college kind of 18, 19, 20, those kind of ages. So it actually was my husband coming across an astrology article that spoke to his astrology sun sign that hit home to him so much. And he's very analytical and logical, black and white, got to see, touch, feel it. He came across that a few years ago. And once he opened up to it, it opened up, just one more area of curiosity that we had an interest in. He's like, this makes so much sense about me. Maybe I can learn more about you. As we dove into looking more into it, it helped me learn more about me too. And not only that, but helped me understand more about him, helped me understand more about my daughter, and helped me more understand about people in general. And it's so much more than just your sun sign. If you're not already aware of that, there's so much more to astrology than just the day you were born, but actually knowing the time, the location, that all has an effect on us, astrologically speaking, but also with that societal and global aspect of it. So I find it to be to support my hero's journey, and now learning more about it after the conversation that we've had tonight, and really understanding that the hero's journey is just simply put, that journey of self-discovery and getting back to your true, authentic self and who you are, then it only makes sense to me that astrology be this powerful tool that we've been given to use to help us to relax and to navigate and to master our way into our hero's journey. So from the thing about astrology, not only that has helped as far as creating another level of communication and another language that we can use to better understand one another and move away from assumptions of people in general, but definitely in my main partnership with my husband. It also, what I feel is not discussed a lot about astrology that is so helpful, is that it's not just about understanding your sign. It's also about understanding your sign so that you can evolve past this point, that you can move past these default characteristics, that you can understand that you're not broken, that there's nothing wrong with you. It's just how your character default is. And knowing that how a default is, many of us take that knowledge and revel in it. Well, that's just how I am. It's in the stars. What I invite you to do is to take that information and challenge yourself to evolve past it. So, for example, I am Capricorn. That's my sun sign. And as a Capricorn, one of my default natures is that I'm a perfectionist. I like to do it. So to evolve myself, embracing imperfection has really helped my character to evolve. While we think, oh, well, if I could just get perfect enough, then I can relax. It's actually the opposite. The more comfortable I can get with imperfection, the more my character evolves, the more that I learn about myself, the more that I can consciously choose how I'm going to respond and what these different outcomes of life means about me, instead of having to go with the default, well, I didn't get it perfect, therefore I'm not enough, wham, what was me. So learning how to evolve that, not only by my default character, but then learning things like my north node and my south node. What is that thing that I'm striving for in this life? Well, it's not what's natural to me. What's natural to me is what I've already mastered. What's unnatural to me is what helps me grow. And as I learn how to set aside my ego, set aside my default character, and embrace this growing evolution, refinement, and what I'm finding through this refinement, which is interesting, one would think that this means like trimming back and losing parts of ourselves to refine ourselves. But what it actually means is telling a more truthful, accurate, full story of who I am. It's communicating more accurately who I am, not necessarily with more words, because again, Capricorn, very loquacious, also born under the year of the horse, under the Chinese astrology, extremely loquacious, very much talkative. So for me, becoming quieter has been a way that's evolved my character, and I think it helps evolve most of our characters. There's some of us need to get louder in other places. So learning these things is not just about learning who you are on the default level, but learning who you are on the default level to help you navigate, understand, make sense, relax into, take ownership, and let go of different parts of yourself, and then to help it to evolve, to overcome it, to champion yourself forward.
And I like the word you used, to relax, because what really helps me is that we are able to relax into this journey, because we see it is the monolith. We have heroes that have gone before us, throughout time, and have done this journey, and they have survived it, and not only survived it, but they have come back from it with the Holy Grail, which is their true, authentic, powerful, beautiful selves. And the universe is cheering us on throughout this.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And it's blessing us, and it's giving us the exact right challenges that we need to grow.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so we can relax, and we can trust and have faith that this process, our own peculiar, weird processes, are exactly what they're meant to be. And everything is unfolding exactly the way it's meant to, like you said, divine.
The divine unfolding, the divine process, divine timing.
Divine timing.
Yeah, without doubt.
Perfection.
For me, this is what this has impacted my life to such a strong degree. I've made it my entire life work now. Me pinpointing what has helped me to decrease overwhelm, relax more, and experience more fulfillment and peace of mind. I've been able to take a step back, pinpoint exactly, not just like what concepts I use, like let it go, just let it go and surrender. But what does that mean? What did I physically do with myself? What did I emotionally do with myself in order to let it go and surrender? And to pinpoint these protocols and to see, these are just universal truths, that this is the way that it worked for me, and this is the way that I articulate it, and to see other people try it on. Like, that's what drives everything for me. Because I feel the benefit. I have found the ease. It has made it better for me. And just the chance that it might make it better for somebody else is kind of what keeps me going. It's what keeps me going. And to watch it be like this universal truth. And then also knowing that it's not for everybody. So I don't have to take it personal. It's not just this one way. And understanding that has helped me to understand all of it, in the sense of no wonder we have so many different ways of religion, of eating, of living life, of sexual expression, of whatever is fill in the blank. Because it's not just one way. It's the experience that's found when you find your way of doing it. So it's not replicating the actions, it's replicating that inward experience. And once you start to tap into that and can correlate that, then you can make all of this, no matter what the outward looks like, an inward experience of your choosing, which is where I think the magic happens, or at least experience it for myself. So I'm looking forward to, and I hope that we can continue to do this format so I can continue to join in this conversation to look at each piece of the puzzle. And I'd invite everybody to reflect, just like what Joy said. What stage of the hero's journey are you on? What parts can you identify unfolding so far in your life? What parts intimidate you or scare you that you see coming up down the way? And if you have it, if you're like, hey, I've gotten this call of adventure, I think probably most of us are if we're drawn to these conversations. What happened when you got that call of adventure? What wisdom did you gain from your experience that you could pass on to others that might watch this in replay or be on the call and join the conversation? I'm a big fan of learning from other people's experiences, and also recognizing that we hold wisdom just from our own experiences, that it's not just, looking back to where this conversation got started, but how did you pull this conversation into your life, and how does it affect you? Because if it helps you, maybe it'll help somebody else too.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we're all on a journey. And really, the journey is the journey home to ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And I have to say, like, firsthand from my experience, it's way better than like a golden cup or whatever the Holy Grail is that we symbolize it to be. There's nothing sweeter. There's nothing richer. There's nothing more fulfilling. I'm convinced of this, and I've just gotten glimpses and tastes and little toe dips, and
there's nothing the world needs more than your true, authentic.
Your willingness to cross that threshold and not go back.
Yes.
Not go back.
Yeah.
I always talk about it as being a line, and you got to inch that line back further and further and further and further and further and further, until you're just saturated in this world of magic. So it's everywhere you go and every experience.
And bringing all that magic back into the ordinary world to show to other people, look.
And remembering not to be so hard on yourself whenever it doesn't happen, because you're here to be human first. First, as far as this outward expression experience, right? We're spiritual beings having this human experience. So what would be the point if it was all the same as on the other side? So anyway, I'm looking forward to the rest of the discussion. I see that Leonard had to drop off. A couple other people had to drop off. Leonard said he had to head to work, but thank you for the great discussion, and that he will definitely stop in for the next one. So that's awesome. And everybody's been feeling that way. If you watch this in replay and you watched it this far, well done.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, because not everybody makes it all the way to the end of the video. So I always like to recognize people whenever they do. And it's a sign that you really enjoy this conversation, which we love, because we were going to have this conversation regardless. But if other people can enjoy it, then that just makes it sweeter for us. And if you did like it, drop some comments below. Reach out to Joy and I if you want to connect with either of us. And we invite you to join us next month whenever we start the step-by-step hero journey dive.
I'm excited.
Yay.
So thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for being here. Good night, Ellen. I see you're still here live. Thanks for
Good
being
night.
here.
Night.
Good night.